Leonardo da Vinci has painted some of the most amazing pictures ever, but did you know that
If he painted something, he only painted what he actually physically saw. So when he painted Virgin of the Rocks, we've been able to locate north of Milan, north of Lecco, an exact location from where the inspiration of Virgin of the Rocks came from.
This is Christopher Heath Brown, a prominent art collector and expert on Leonardo da Vinci. This past summer, he went over to Italy to look for a specific cave from one of Leonardo da Vinci's paintings. But this wasn't just for fun. This was
because we believed we had a map to where the Ark of the Covenant would be.
The Ark of the Covenant is one of the most important religious artifacts ever, also known as the Ark of the Testimony or the Ark of God. It's a wooden chest covered in pure gold, and inside of it
are the Ten Commandment tablets. It is a jar of manna, which is bread that fell from the sky, and is Moses' staff. It's called Aaron's rod. It's also God's holy throne on the earth.
People have been searching for the Ark of the Covenant for centuries, but as far as we know, it hasn't been seen
since 500 years before Christ.
And Chris thinks he may have found its resting place in a cave in the mountains north of Milan. And he doesn't just
think the Ark of the Covenant is there for no reason. We have reasons to know that Da Vinci hid these things in his work.
What kinds of things did Da Vinci hide in his work? Before we get to that, let's talk about how Chris got into this in the first place.
Dan Brown did the same thing with the Da Vinci Code. Even though he said this is fiction, he wanted us to look at art deeper. That made me do this. That's what made me do all the things I've done, because I wanted, I'm Christian. And Dan Brown was being blasphemous, saying that Mary Magdalene is pregnant with Christ's child. I wanted to prove him wrong. Well, it's not written in our books yet, but I have proved him wrong. And again, he didn't have to be right because he wrote fiction, right? But I wanted to prove that his premise, that even though it's fiction, that would be Mary Magdalene to the right hand of Christ, that's not who it was.
And so, inspired by Dan Brown and the Da Vinci Code, Chris set out to prove him wrong and find the true meaning behind Da Vinci's paintings. But that's easier said than done, because what most people don't
realize is Einstein's IQ was like 180, but they say Da Vinci's IQ was in the 220s. I think Da Vinci is probably one of the most brilliant human beings that has ever lived. I mean, he actually designed lots of research, lots of things like flying machines, tanks. They built his machines, and what's really cool is like his tank. They built it and it wouldn't even work. And it's because he put 3 errors in it that only he knew, because he was afraid if somebody stole it, they would build it and then use it against them. When you think of something, you got to think, well, how did Da Vinci think about this? So you got to think about it in 3 or 4 ways. You just can't think of it the right way because he wrote backwards. He did things to kind of protect his work, right? Is the work supposed to be this way or is it in mirror? So you always got to be thinking that too, right? So you got to be always thinking like in different ways in order to be like Da Vinci. But being in a 220 IQ, he could just rotate and see things that you and I can't even imagine. I mean, a guy of an IQ of 220, I mean, it's not like just getting 2 people with 180 IQ and it's the same. It's like an astronomical human being that's able to use your brain in a way we've never done it.
Well, in the process of analyzing these images, Chris started finding clues by manipulating Da Vinci's images using geometry, whether that be by mirroring them, layering them on top of one another, or squeezing all the imagery together into a tighter frame. And it was in doing so that he discovered
a bigger story is being told. If you take the Last Supper, it was stretched out, and if you pull it all in and you consolidate it, that leaning Virgin Mary and John, if you squeeze it in, is now on the left shoulder of Christ. And now you got Judas with his hand like this and over Christ's throat, right? Of course, the purpose of painting the Last Supper was to denote the moment of time that Judas was going to betray Christ. And he was going to tell all the apostles, this is the moment you're going to be betrayed. But you also had that doubting Thomas, and he goes from being on the left side of Christ to the right side of Christ, and he's pointing in a window to where my friend owns property north of Milan that had that cave where we were going to look for the Ark of the Covenant.
I know what you're thinking. How did the Ark of the Covenant get from Temple Mount in Jerusalem to Milan, Italy?
Well, there's rumors that Templar Knights might have moved them out in medieval time.
And why is this rumor extra important for our story today?
Well, my friend owns this property. He's been in his family's name for like 400 or 500 years. And he has Templar Knights in his family. And he's got Templar seals, and he's got all these things. His father passed away when he was 8 years old, and he had a heart attack about 20 feet from this cave. Well, do you know what happens if you touch the Ark of the Covenant? You die. It's in the Bible. One person touched it when he thought it was going to tip over, and he passed away, and he died from a heart attack. So there's just so many coincidental things that just, so it just makes you really think, hey, do we really have something there?
On top of that,
we know Da Vinci was on the property because of his notebooks. He wrote about things he saw, the things we saw on his property. So I've been able to identify things in the paintings that make us believe that possibly the Ark of the Covenant could be on this property.
And so this past summer, Chris ventured out to these mountains north of Milan and found the cave he was looking for. And did he find the Ark of the Covenant? No. But inside the cave were
identifiers that were to Leonardo da Vinci. And what I mean by that is he didn't sign his name on the cave, but there were these 3 dots that are in his paintings. One is the Mona Lisa, one is the Prada Mona Lisa, and another one is Salvator Mundi. And the crystal ball he's holding are these 3 dots. And on this wall in this cave were the 3 dots. That's his signature basically in the cave. But the cave had been filled in at the bottom, and we weren't able to get to the top part of the cave because it wasn't safe. So our goal next summer is to go back in there, and could we find something like the Ark of the Covenant? Possibly, yes.
But for Chris, even just seeing those dots, he
totally lost my breath. I mean, I you know, and I couldn't really show a lot of excitement because the cave guides who had gone there to prepare us getting into the cave, they kind of knew we were going, but they didn't know what we were looking for, right? And again, we didn't want them stealing it either, right? If there was there. So I had to hide my surprise a little bit, but I almost lost my breath because I never in the world expected that to be there.
But why would Da Vinci have hidden it?
It was partly my same concern when I was worried about sharing this. Is in Revelations, it says, when the 3rd Temple Mount is built, the Ark of the Covenant will return. That will mark the beginning of the end of times. Well, I'm not the one that's in charge of the end of times. That's God. So I'm not going to be like, someone's not going to say I forced that if I find the Ark of the Covenant, because to me, the counterbalance to that is if there are people that are looking for proof of the Bible and we find the Ark of the Covenant and the 10 people can see the 10 Commandment tablets, how many people will be saved into Christianity or Judaism? I mean, sure, you know, it's just part of the Jewish laws, you know, rules and laws. And I don't know what's in the Quran and some of these other things, but, you know, I know your one way to heaven is through Christ. I'm a Christian. I have to believe that. So to me, the counterbalance of possibly starting the end of times, and I don't think Italy's going to like go and say, hey, take the Ark of the Covenant, right? Anyway. So again, that's not up to me, but I do think as a researcher and you know, whether I'm Lewis and Clark or Columbus or whomever, if I am on the same intellect level as Da Vinci and I'm able to, through trial and error, decipher that there might be something there and we find it, then I want to. Can you imagine what it would be like to find the Ark of the Covenant based on Leonardo da Vinci? I mean, that would put him into a whole new realm.
This isn't the only thing Chris has noticed analyzing Da Vinci's paintings. One of his other big takes is that the woman in the Mona Lisa painting is not
Lisa Gioconda or Lisa Gioconda or Lisa Giardini, who was a silk merchant's wife. She may have been the initial influence for what Mona Lisa would look like, but his Mona Lisa, which was painted later than 1503, it was painted probably in 1512 to 1513, was who Da Vinci had painted the most, the Virgin Mary.
And if you want to hear more about that, you can listen to my entire interview with Chris on the Artwell podcast at the link in the description or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for watching.